Good day, everyone. We are the Group 2 from BSBM FM 3-4 presenting to you about the Republic Act 1425 in the 19th century Philippines as Rizal context. I am Kimberly M. Uy.
I am Heidian Santos Forte.
Hi, I am Prince Lloyd S. Suarez.
I'm Nilakina.
Hi, I'm Abigail Paula Jagro.
Hi, my name is Meryl Stahan.
And with that, let's jump right into it. Students have been wondering why the need to study Rizal's life and works. Aren't we supposed to study only those things that will help us live our lives for the future? Why go back to the past? And why does this course become significant in our life as students and in general as a fellow Filipino people? Ms. Tahan, do you have any idea on what did José Rizal do that it is important for us to be aware of his life and works?
Of course, I want you all to meet Dr. José Rizal. José Rizal is mostly known as the Philippines' national hero that inspires fellow Filipinos to take nonviolent actions against the Spanish for nation's independence through his political writings and works, specifically his novels No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo. To honor his patriotism, Republic Act 1425 was made. So what is the Republic Act 1425? Miss Heidi Ann Forte?
What is it? Republic Act 1425, known as Rizal Law, mandates all educational institutions in the Philippines to offer courses about José Rizal. It is entitled as an act to include in the curricula of all public and private schools, colleges and universities, courses on the life, works, and writings of José Rizal, particularly his novel No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, authorizing the printing and distribution thereof and for other purposes. It is partly divided into 6 sections. Section 1 aims that the original or unrevised editions of No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, or their English translation, shall be used a primary or basic text for better understanding of the context. The Board of National Education is hereby authorized and directed to take immediate action to carry out the provisions of this section, including the creation and printing of relevant primers, readers, and textbooks. The Board shall publish rules and regulations, including disciplinary rules, to implement and execute the provision of this Act within 60 days of its date of issuance. Section 2 mandates that all schools, colleges, and universities must keep an adequate number of copies of the original and unrevised editions of No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, as well as copies of Rizal's other novels and biography in their libraries. The stated original manuscript editions of No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, as well as other Rizal writings, will be added to the list of recognized books for mandatory reading in all public and private schools, even in other colleges and universities. Depending on the enrollment number of the school, college, or university, the Board of National Education will assess the suitability of the quantity of books. Section 3 is an implementation of the Board of National Education to order that the No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, as well as other works by José Rizal, will be translated into English, Tagalog, and other major Philippine dialects, that they be printed in inexpensive, popular editions, and that they be distributed free of charge to anyone who wishes to read them through Purok organizations and barrio councils throughout the country. Section 4. In this Act, nothing shall be regarded as revising or eliminating Administrative Code Section 927, which forbids public school instructors and the other person employed in the public schools from discussing Christian beliefs. Section 5 discussed the act that sum up of 300,000 pesos is hereby authorized to be appropriated from any fund not otherwise taken up in the National Treasury. Section 6. This act shall take effect upon its approval. Now that we have knowledge about Republic Act 1425, let us start to discuss about its purpose.
What is its purpose? There is a need for a commitment to the ideals of liberty and nationalism, for which our ancient ancestors fight and died. Hence, the Republic Act 1425 is made. It is advocate that in honoring them, particularly the national hero and patriot José Rizal, we remember their lives and works that have shaped the cultural history with great appreciation and dedication. José Rizal's life, works, and writing, particularly his novel, No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, are a constant and inspiring source of patriotism, with which the mind of the youth, particularly during their foundational and crucial school years, should be instilled. José Rizal believed that the youth is the hope of the nation. His works were written for the Filipino people, specifically the Filipino youth, who may have lost their sense of nationalism. The writers of this bill aim to relight a lost spark in each Filipino's belief in their country.
Now that we've learned what is the Republic Act 1425, its aim and its purpose, we will now determine its timeline. How and when exactly the Act has been approved. On April 3, 1956, the Act has been first introduced as the Senate Bill No. 438, and Senator Claro M. Recto was the main proponent of the Rizal Bill, while Senator Jose P. Laurel Sr., who was then the chairman of the Committee on Education, sponsored the bill in the Senate. Both of them were known for their great sense of nationalism. It is strongly opposed by the Roman Catholic Church in the Philippines due to the anti-clerical themes in No Limitangere and El Filibusterismo, further claiming that the bill would violate freedom of conscience and religion. Manila Archbishop Rufino Santos, for example, penned an impassioned pastoral letter protesting the bill, arguing that the compulsory reading of the original versions of Rizal's novel would negatively affect students. However, despite such opposition, and after all the debates on whether to institutionalize the bill, on June 12, 1956, the bill has been finally approved and signed by President Ramon Magsaysay. It was later known as the Republic Act 1425, also known as the Rizal Law. The signing of the Act has now being implemented in all educational institutions here in the Philippines, hence why we are able to study about Rizal and his life and works.
Today, we are going to talk about the 19th century of the Philippines in Rizal's context. The 19th century in general was the era of challenges and responses. Further, in the Philippine setting, it was the period of major changes that affect man and society, and also the age of Enlightenment, as it ignites the spirit of nationalism that sparks the battle of democracy, as it screams that the country should be free and the people should enjoy liberty, equality, and democracy. During the time, Spaniards highly influenced the Philippines in these aspects. First, we are going to talk about the economic context. Under economic context is the galleon trade. It was the main source of income for the colony. Products were brought from China, such as silks, porcelain, spices, and exotic goods, to Mexico in exchange for silver. But the trade is only limited and monopolized from Philippines to Spain and vice versa. The Philippines earned its income through buy and sell. That is, they bought items in China for resale to Mexico. Second is the hacienda system. The Philippines gave rise to the hacienda system, where they claimed ownership of large amounts of land from the Filipinos to use for planting crops, also known as cash crops. Some of these crops are sugar, tobacco, abaca, and coffee. As the opening of Suez Canal paved its way to find a much easier path for the boat to reach each other from Philippines to Acapulco, Mexico, and vice versa, It also opens the opportunities for the Philippines to introduce its product to the world trade. As the galleon trade comes to an end, Philippines became the major exporter of these products and became well known in other parts of the globe. However, there are negative impacts of the economic changes in the Philippines. First is the polo y servicio, or the forced labor. With the rise of the hacienda system, Spaniards in the Philippines were focused on land ownership to be used for planting cash crops, forcing Filipinos to work in return for protection and education. Also, they were obliged to give personal services to community projects. Next is the taxes and tithes. Further, aside land ownership, Spaniards also focused on taxes and tithes to support the government and the church. In result, several forms of taxes and monopolies were formed.
Education system. The priors take over the education system in the Philippines. They control and own several schools comprising primary to tertiary levels. Missionaries were assigned to take charge of the teaching, implementation of rules and regulation, and monitoring of students. In these times, discrimination is widely spread as schools were exclusive only to Spaniards. Filipinos were only able to attend during the late 19th century but were limited to the sons of wealthy Filipino families. There are four defects of educational system during Spanish time. First is emphasis on religion. Fear of God was emphasized. Obedience to priors was instilled in the mind of people. Indios were constantly reminded that they have inferior intelligence and were fit for manual labor only. And also, will of God is emphasized. Second is absence of academic freedom. Most schools were not open to the natives, and students were not allowed to express their opinion. Third is racial discrimination. Prior to Educational Decree of 1863, the schools were not open to the natives. Spaniards hesitated to consider the Indios as educable as themselves. And lastly, limited curriculum. Education was limited to the 3 R's, that is, reading, writing, and arithmetic.
Political context. During this time, there was a union of church and state. Governor General had the power over the church, while friars have an important role in the government. The Philippines were under the rule of the priors. Political structure during Spanish colonial period. In Spain, they established a centralized colonial government in the Philippines that was composed of a national government and the local governments that administered provinces, cities, towns, and municipalities. The national government maintained peace and order, collected taxes, and built schools and other public works. The national government include 2 branches, the executive branch and the judicial branch. In the executive branch, led by the Governor General, the Governor General are the King's representative and the highest ranking official in the Philippines. They had the great powers. They had the power to appoint and dismiss public officials except those personally chosen by the King. He was the commander-in-chief of the colonial armed forces. The Governor General and other government officials had so much power that it was commonly abused. To investigate the abuses, there were bodies created: the Residencia, Visita, and Royal Audiencia. In the judicial branch, they include the Residencia. The Residencia, this was a special judicial court that investigates the performance of a Governor General who was about to be replaced. The Residencia, of which the incoming Governor General was usually a member, submitted a report of its findings to the kings. Next is the Visita. The Council of the Indies in Spain sent a government official called the Visitador General to observe conditions in the colony. The Royal Audiencia, they serve as an advisory body to the Governor General. They had the power to check and report on his abuses. The Audiencia also audited expenditures on the colonial government. The highest court in the land during the Spanish times are the Royal Audiencia. For the local government, there are three governments: the provincial government alcaldía, led by the alcalde mayor, municipal government corregimiento, led by the corregidor, and the city government ayuntamiento, led by the cabildo. In the provincial government, the duties of the alcalde mayor, they represented the Spanish king and the governor general. They managed the day-to-day operations of the provincial government. They implemented laws and supervised the collection of taxes. The corregimiento, headed by corregidor, governed the provinces that were not yet entirely under Spanish control. The larger towns became cities called ayuntamiento. It became the center of the trade and industry. The ayuntamiento had a city council called the cabildo. Cabildo is composed of alcalde or the mayor, councilors, police chief, and secretary. Under the provincial government alcaldía, there are pueblos or towns led by the gobernadorcillos and the barrios or cabeza de barangay. Gobernadorcillos, they are the small salaries but were exempted from paying taxes. What are the qualifications? Any native or Chinese mestizo, 25 years of age, literate in oral or written Spanish, and cabeza de barangay for 4 years. For the cabeza de barangay or barrio administrator or barangay captain, they are responsible for peace and order of the barrio. They are recruited men for public works. What are the qualifications? Cabezas should be literate in Spanish, have good moral character and property. Cabezas who served for 25 years were exempted from forced labor. The Philippines of Rizal's time. During the time of Rizal's, the sinister shadow of Spain's decadence darkens the Philippine skies. The Filipino agonized beneath the yoke of Spanish misrule, for they were unfortunate victims of the evils of an unjust, bigoted, and deteriorating colonial power. The 19th century, when Rizal lived, was a century of ferment caused by the blowing of winds of history. The above events significantly affect the lives and the fortunes of mankind, as well as the life of José Rizal. The priors who were assigned to implement the educational decrees from Spain were among the vociferous of the Spanish elements against the teaching of the Spanish language in the Philippines. They do believe that the knowledge of the Spanish language would encourage the people to oppose Spanish rule.
I hope you learned something from us about the topic, and thank you for listening.